I'm quick.
Quick!
All in all, you understood that they do not like to build a retaining wall. I underestimated how expensive this was. But this view will replace and compensate for all your time and money spent. We'll discuss building a retaining wall. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most challenging parts of construction. This here's a retaining wall. Behind me, there's a slalom. Hey, no, the driveway. It leads into the 5,000 square foot house on 1 acre of land. Using this house as an example, we'll discuss building a retaining wall. Firstly, let's talk about when to build the retaining wall. If you have a flat land plot, you can construct the retaining wall to create the step and raise your flower bed higher, for example. If your land plot is on a slope, you'll no doubt have to come across the idea of the retaining wall. To align your backyard or build your house on a slope, you'll certainly need to trim the slope, making the retaining wall, and smooth out the ground. And so, if you bought a land plot on a slope or decided to buy it, let's look at what to build the retaining wall from. Before starting any construction, we know we need to create a project. If your wall is below 4 feet high, you can draw the design directly on a napkin while sitting in a restaurant. But if the wall's more than 4 feet high, you'll need to create the project with a licensed engineer so that they'll calculate for you what materials, height, and thickness you'll need to build in your case. Behind me is a retaining wall that consists of 2 foot by 5 foot solid blocks. We fold it to level the ground in the backyard. Since our house is on the top and our pool and other parts are located slightly in the lowland, we have to raise this wall, after which we will cover it with soil. While raising the wall, it's necessary to create supporting and base parts, in other words, leveling the site. It could be footing or a specifically created concrete slab on which you then install the blocks. In this case, since the stones are quite heavy, we simply prepared a platform, rammed it, and this was more than enough for these heavy stones to hold the small soil that is behind the wall. The very concept of the retaining wall already determines that something will press into this wall. First, it'll press the soil. Secondly, behind the wall, you'll have to place a drainage, that is, a water intake. This strange pipe is sold at almost all Home Depots and other suppliers. This is called French drainage. It's installed behind a retaining wall to divert water that rests against this wall. The water will still go down the slope since it has to go somewhere. This drainage is installed accordingly. It's also necessary to place gravel on the back of the wall. Garden lovers know that to plant plants, you must put gravel on the bottom and place the soil. Why put gravel on the bottom? Similarly, the gravel is placed behind the retaining wall so that the gravel acts as a kind of sieve and allows water to pass through and does not get stuck and does not clog the hole in the wall. In other words, the gravel helps the water to calmly pass through this barrier and enter the drainage pipe. If the gravel is not placed, the drain pipe will become clogged and will not work. After the French drainage is laid at the bottom of the retaining wall, it is covered with gravel, where this training channel is soldered so that the drainage channel is not contaminated. The next step is determining what construction goes into the retaining wall. I know several options which you can build the wall from. The first, of course, which we already see, is blocks. Or it can be small blocks placed on the mortar or solid large blocks placed both on the mortar and without mortar. But concrete is also used for the retaining wall. We all know that concrete is the most robust material. To build from concrete, you need to make a deck. As you might already know, you put the reinforcement inside, then pour concrete, make the waterproofing, and your retaining wall is ready. This will hold the pressure of the soil. And if you've done the waterproofing and drainage correctly, the water will go to the side. I also know the technique of building a retaining wall from blocks when concrete is poured inside the block. A concrete wall uses a similar process, but it's made much faster, easier, and cheaper. You assemble the wall from the blocks, visit the fittings inside, pour concrete, and the wall stands. Remember that you need a fundamental cushion, the so-called footing on which the wall is placed. Otherwise, the wall will start to move, sag, and float, and you may have problems in the future. Well, at least in appearance. But the wall will collapse if you do not build the footing, and then you'll end up redoing it. There are special cases when the rating of the wall is combined with the main foundation of the house. In this case, I'm standing in the pit we prepared for the room. It'll be at a lower level than all the house's foundations, and so all this soil will press down moving towards this room. Therefore, we must build a concrete wall here, combine its main walls with the primary foundation, make the waterproofing on the reverse side, make a French drainage, and fill everything with gravel. And this wall will act as a natural wall in the house, but it'll also hold all the pressure of the soil and water that comes from the side of the main house into our room, which is slightly lower. As soon as I thought about the budget, I immediately got heat stroke. Honestly, it's very hot in Texas today, but the budget was exciting. I've been in construction for many years, and when we did this in Ukraine, the retaining wall budgets were small because the budgets for the foundation for concrete in Ukraine were small. But when I came to America and started building a retaining wall on our projects, at first, I underestimated how expensive this was. For example, a retaining wall is built to make a septic field and keep part of the slope. And the septic field, as we know, has to be up to 30% slope. We often need to do it under a support wall to hold the ground on the other side. 60 feet long, guys, 4 feet high. A wall like this made of concrete will cost $12,000. A narrow wall of 8 inches would cost $12,000. These are unexpected costs. When the engineer and architect suggested this, it seemed that, that's fine. We'll make a septic tank here, lower it, and put it in a retaining wall. But it's 3 weeks of work, so that's $12,000. And this is an additional element in the house that needs to be decorated. If you make a stone wall, as we are doing now, it'll be a nice, beautiful view. But if you make a wall made from concrete, and the concrete is poured poorly, it must be plastered. This also adds an additional cost, time, and money. Now, I'll show you one more small, important nuance which is often overlooked, but leads to the destruction of the wall, which in turn leads to losses. You can now see the giant blocks in my way, with each block weighing perhaps 200 kilograms. And so, when you stack a block on top of another block, they can't be laid so that there is a clear verticality. Visually, you will not see this, but each next block should be placed with some displacement, as it were backward, so the wall has a slight slope. This displacement may be 3 to 6 inches, but it'll give the wall a reverse slope and stability. And when the soil presses against the wall, this stability will work much better. If you build a wall, eventually it'll move out of place, lean towards the other side, and collapse. This is a small detail, but it saves you money, time, effort, and nerves. Let's ask our contractor if he would like to build a retaining wall.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes, ¿cómo
¿Cómo
estás?
estás?
Muy bien.
Muy bien. Sí. Do you like retaining wall?
Me gusta, pero ya me quiero ir. Es muy caliente aquí. Quick.
Quick! Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think you will do very, very good job here
Thank you, sir.
for us. Thank you.
All in all, you understood that they do not like to build a retaining wall. Guys, I want to show you this corner. This is the corner of the main foundation and the level above the ground. It'll only be 6 or 8 inches here. All the while, the corner from where we started the video and where you saw the big retaining wall behind me arises almost 10 feet from ground level. When I bought this land, it visually seemed to me that it was a flat area, and it is visually flat. Namely, it looked like a small slope, but when we checked all the equipment, we realized the other side was much lower than this, and we had to build a retaining wall there. Please pay attention to the survey and the heights when you buy a land plot because it gives you an idea of your home's budget. If there's a retaining wall, it'll be very expensive. This will add an extra $20,000 to $30,000, along with extra nerves and extra days in construction. Why do people buy land plots on slopes, build retaining walls and spend lots of money on them? The answer can be seen behind my back. See the panoramic view offered from this house? Naturally, when buying an acre of land and placing a house at a height, you must deal with retaining walls. But this view will replace and compensate for all your time and money spent. I also found a few positive things about building retaining walls for design. First, if yours is made of concrete and is part of the house's interior, you can leave the concrete exposed. We did this in our projects. It looks very nice. You do not need to make an artificial imitation, glue wallpaper, or plaster under concrete. The retaining wall can perform as both a function and a design element. The second design option, if your retaining walls are outdoors and there's enough space for it and an opportunity, you can build a garden on it. For example, plants will hang from your wall, or you can make a waterfall there, and the waterfall will fall from your wall just like the one we did in our project. Or your wall can even act as a shadow. Well, I'm inspired and ignited by projects such as this one, where you need to build a retaining wall, where you need to invest your knowledge and efforts, and create a unique project just like this one. Subscribe, and if you enjoyed this project and this topic, I'm ready to make a tour and show you everything. Come with me, I'll be waiting for you.